of why we educate. Instead, we look to a couple different ideas on education. Dr. Edie Hirsch, who was a professor at University of Virginia, founded the Core Knowledge Foundation. We'll talk a little bit about that. But Dr. Hirsch's premise was that we should be educating kids in a common tradition to initiate our kids into the tradition of what it means to be an American, because the ideas behind the American experience and what it means to be a citizen in our country isn't something that people just pick up, but it has to be trained. We also believe that the purpose of education is a couple of different things. It's not just developing the intellect, but it's also developing the moral powers for self-governance and the pursuit of happiness ultimately. And we do that by being explicit and focusing on virtue in our schools. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. We also take the approach that our model of education is, while classical, is also uniquely an American classical education. And I think we talked about education itself education is just worthy of doing for the sake of being educated. It doesn't necessarily have to have an end to it. It doesn't have to be about getting a good job or being a lawyer or a doctor or a tradesman. It's just something good to be educated. So I'd like to take a minute, just do a quick overview of our program. We talked about being a classical school. And what does that mean? Well, it means a couple things. It means we focus on wisdom and virtue. We talk about the pursuit of the good, the true, and the beautiful. We do that through reading the great books, and we work to inspire wonder and a love of learning in our children. We use the core knowledge sequence, and the core knowledge sequence is not to be confused with the Common Core, but it's a proven, content-rich, integrated program. It goes from the grades K through 8, and with the ideas carrying into the high school program as well. So what does that mean as far as being integrated and spiraled? When we talk about it being integrated, we look at the fact that when our kids are learning about something like the Renaissance, they're studying Renaissance history, Renaissance literature, art and music of that era as well. So that's the integrated approach. So it's very coherent. And also we talk about spiraling. Roughly every 3 years, the program will come back and it'll get more in depth of topics that the children learned earlier. So the kids keep coming back to the same topics about every 3 years. We do use a program that subscribes to the liberal arts and sciences. I think it's important that we specifically call out the sciences, even though the liberal arts themselves do include hard sciences and math. But really the idea behind the liberal arts is that this is an education for free people. It helps develop reason. It's broad and well-rounded, and it's not specialized or vocational like you'll find in a lot of programs today that at a very early age try to get kids to start tracking and determining what do they want to do when they grow up. And it starts giving them courses and course maps that lead into that specialization fairly early in life. We're also a program that focuses on the Western and American tradition as well. So our school will be opening with grades K-6 this fall. And so I want to talk a little bit about some unique things about the K-6 program. I talked a little bit about the core knowledge sequence. And again, that is a well-known program, but it's a framework. It's a general outline of what kids learn. There are still a lot of pieces that are plugged in to that are unique to what we offer as a classical school. We use a program called Literacy Essentials for our phonics, and that's an explicit phonics approach. And as an example, for many of us, we learned a couple sounds of A. It was typically the short and the long sounds. In a phonics program like this, our children learn the sounds and the building blocks of the English language, and they learn how to put them together in more sophisticated ways. So in our approach to phonics, the sound, or the letter A has 3 sounds, A, ah, and the kids go through all the letters of the alphabet and learn the different sounds, and they start putting 2 letters together, 3 letters, 4 letters, and then start learning the different sounds those combinations make and start building on that. Our program also focuses heavily on grammar and spelling. I think I still tell people it's unfortunate that we have to talk about a school that focuses on grammar and spelling, but there are a lot of schools today that believe focusing on grammar and spelling take away from the creativity of the child. And so they tell teachers not to pay attention to the grammar and the spelling because the creative thinking process is more important. While we talk a lot about developing the moral imagination, we don't think that's done at the expense of grammar and spelling, and that a good program can incorporate all of those together. We focus on cursive handwriting, or we still teach cursive handwriting starting in the 3rd grade. I think what's important, we talk about what's distinct about a classical school, is our focus on good books and great stories. So the books that we read are books that have withstood the test of time. They're great literature that even I as an adult will go back and read, and many of our teachers will go back and read. And they're stories that will give you a different experience each time you read them throughout your life. And I think with the good books come the great stories. So we focus a lot on heroes throughout history and just things that were done nobly and honorably, and really give sense, inspire children, and again, develop their moral imagination. We expose our students to Latin and Greek roots early, since about 78% of our English language is made up of those root words. What's important, well, we also use Singapore math as our approach to math, and we ability group our grammar school at math. So what you'll find is that throughout the grades, all of the math classes will take place at the same time, and children will go to the math class appropriate for their ability group. We also offer PE every day and art or music every day as well. So what does it look like when you go into a grammar school classroom at a good classical school? You'll see a couple things. You'll see teachers in front of the classroom teaching. You'll see direct instruction. So you'll see highly engaged kids sitting in rows with students facing the teacher in the front. And the teacher, if he or she is doing his job well, that we spend a lot of time training on, they'll be doing a lot of interaction and a lot of dialogue between the students. You'll see orderly classrooms. You'll see the classrooms well decorated. There will not be a lot of bright colors all over the walls for the sake of having decoration, but you'll see things that are intentional and related to the curriculum. You also see that our students wear uniforms to school as well. I've got to just admit, I wasn't really sold on uniforms when we first started this, but now having a parent of 2 children in a classical school, it definitely makes an easier experience for us as parents. And I find that our kids now also really enjoy wearing uniforms to school as well. As we progress through the junior and senior high school, again, we continue the core knowledge sequence through 8th grade. And we continue a lot of the same ideas of core knowledge throughout the rest of the high school program as well. We continue focusing on classical literature. Our kids will read the Iliad, the Odyssey. They'll read Virgil, and they'll read a lot of other great literature as well. We focus on source documents, and then you'll see more Socratic discussion and dialogue going on as the children grow and move throughout the high school. Our program, we have a heavy focus on American history. We have a full year of American government, and it's not just about civic activism and telling our kids to go out and vote. It's roughly in the first semester, we'll spend time talking about the structure of the federal government, and then we'll get into state and local government throughout the year. Our kids will read the Federalist Papers, they'll study the Constitution. They'll also have a great class in free market economics as well. Latin is required throughout the program with a required Latin course in high school. We have a fine arts and music program as part of our core academic program. We get asked a lot from parents about college credits and how we do that. I think it's important for us just to acknowledge that we are not a college prep program. Again, when we talked about wanting our kids and expecting our kids to be well prepared when they get to that point, but we really want our kids to focus on a well-rounded education and participating in all of that without the focus on what happens after high school. However, with that said, we do have a relationship with the CU Succeed program at the University of Colorado, Denver, where we're able to award direct college credit for classes that are taught with our staff on our campus. I think it's important if we look at what do we do different. Again, we do teach kids in the early years. We do teach them a lot of rote learning. That's typically disparaged these days, but we use that as a foundation to get them into higher order learning and how to think and how to be persuasive as they progress in their education as well. So our teachers and our staff, I think it's important that as a charter school, we are able to focus on hiring content experts. Licensing is neither required nor preferred in a school like ours, and that's typical in a lot of charter schools. All our staff are highly qualified and have college degrees in their field as well. I think this is just an important slide to bring your attention to, or just have a quick conversation on, but what does this mean? Does this mean we have people who aren't qualified to be in classrooms? No, it means instead we can get people who have, like I said, content backgrounds to be working with your children. I like to use an example, a teacher we have at Golden View Classical in Golden who has a degree in biochemistry from Yale. Dr. Jackson can't teach at a district school, but we're able to have her come teach at a charter school. And that's and we have many teachers like that who are at our programs. So character and virtue. We talked a little bit about classical education being about more than just the academics and developing the minds of our students. It's also about developing the hearts. And we do that by intentional conversations and discussions of virtue throughout all the classes and all the grades. And what you'll see listed are core virtues of our program. So in kindergarten, you'll see the kindergarten teachers having conversations about George Washington and courage as he was leading the colonists in the American Revolution. Now these are actually ordered in a very intentional way. If you go through them, these are very Aristotelian, sorry, and you'll see the courage being one of the most physical virtues. And as we go down the list, they're getting into more intellectual virtues, with wonder being one of the highest virtues that we want to instill in our children. And really, when we talk about schools and instilling a love for learning, wonder is really what we're doing, is instilling wonder in our children. I mentioned a little bit about an American classical education. And again, I've talked about our intentional approach and how we do a very serious treatment of American history, American government. In our moral philosophy course, we really talk a lot about the foundation that leads to behind the thinking and ideals of our country, and free market economics as well. So it's really a program that builds on itself. In addition, just that very intentional approach to prepare young people to be engaged citizens and husbands and wives and business members and veterans and military service members. We also teach our children to respect and their country and a deep sense of patriotism. We do that not just by whitewashing the history of our country, but we talk about the unfortunate things in the history of our nation as well. But again, we do it in a very controlled environment that's very intentional, and we guide children through discussions of issues like slavery in America and the treatment of Native Americans in our country. But again, we do work to instill a love of our country in our young people. So we're really excited. This next year, we've been promoting our program as being located in the Windsor area, Southeast Fort Collins, Windsor area, just because of just where the real estate market is and the size that we need to open a school. We're opening up in more centrally in Fort Collins, and we're excited to have a partnership with Clearwater Church, 2700 South LeMay Avenue. So we'll be able to open as a K-6 school there. They have a wing of their building that was actually built as a school. So we're just really fortunate to have a partnership with them this next year, and to be opening up in that location. We are currently working on our long-term location and having discussions to be able to purchased some land closer to the north side of Windsor as well in Larimer County. And when we're at a point where we can be more public about that, we'll be looking forward to making that announcement. Recently, we also were really fortunate to have brought on and announced Mr. Trent Kramer as our headmaster. Mr. Kramer is a graduate of Hillsdale College and served for a number of years at Benjamin Franklin Charter School in Arizona. He started working at Benjamin Franklin as a teacher and is coming to us having left Benjamin Franklin as an assistant principal. So I'd like to just open up the opportunity for Mr. Kramer just to introduce himself and talk a little bit more about his background here briefly, and then he'll talk with us more during the Q&A.
Yeah, hi everybody. I feel like, as Derek said earlier, I really wish that I was in the same room as you guys and we could be having this conversation face to face. And I'm really anxious and excited to get up and start working in the Fort Collins area and building relationships with you. The more you get to know me, the more you'll realize that relationships with people and building a community is very important to me. And so I'm really missing that opportunity right now, but I'm happy that we can have the technology to do some of these things. But yeah, like Derek said, I am a graduate of Hillsdale College. I graduated with a degree in history from there. And then I was teaching and working down in Arizona at a classical school and was able to develop some leadership roles and kind of rise through the ranks. I think it's important to note, I definitely didn't want to leave teaching. I love teaching. And I've actually taught a class each of the last several years that I've been an administrator and doing administrative duties. But I love the students. I love being in the classroom. The academic piece of this job is definitely my favorite, but also then just building this community of learners and this community of people that are trying to do good and grow their community that they're in. And so I'm very, very excited about being a part of that. Classical education became a passion of mine during my time at Hillsdale College. I'm one of those students that I would call myself a little bit of a late bloomer. I didn't really like school, K through 12. And then I went to a school that was classical. And I felt at first very confused as to why it was so difficult and why so many people loved it. And it took me a year to figure out that, oh, I'm starting to realize that there's some value here. And even if I didn't see it right away, I started to want to see that value. I saw the incredible growth that it gave, and not just growth, but joy that it instilled into the people that I was around, whether it was my friends or my professors. And I wanted that. And over my time that I was there, I ended up falling in love with not only history more and literature more, but I started falling in love with classical philosophy and the pedagogy of teaching, especially. And so that drove me to want to be a teacher. And ever since then, I've just wanted to share this love and joy that I have with this type of education with as many students and families and then teachers and staff as I possibly can. And so one of the things that I love about the community aspect is I love to be able to have those conversations with you about what your kids are learning, to have those conversations that I'm hoping your kids are coming home after having class and having a conversation about moderation or justice with their teacher and sharing it with you at the dinner table. And so I'm just very excited to be a part of that process and that community that we're growing up in Northern Colorado as a part of Ascent. So I look forward to answering some of your questions later, and I really look forward to getting to know you guys here in the next couple months.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Kramer. So kind of getting near the end of our presentation here, so I just want to wrap up. Again, we talked about really the goal of what we're doing is to cultivate a sense of wonder in our young children, with the idea that our education and a broad liberal education that's broad in arts and sciences and history and literature is one that will prepare our graduates to flourish in life. We also want them to be intentional and understand what it means to pursue the good, true, and the beautiful. Again, and as I mentioned, we want to expose them to great books and great teachers, and really just to give them an opportunity to carry those, especially books, with them throughout their life. We use a proven high-quality academic program with great leadership and staff as well. So briefly, just want to talk about next steps. You can apply for a seat online or and join our mailing list by visiting our website at noco.ascentclassical.org. We do have what we call a founding family program, And what that means is that we are able to offer a limited number of families founding family status. And we do have a definition for that. And it's families who have either referred 30 potential, I'm sorry, who referred 15 children whose parents have completed an application for our school. They don't necessarily have to attend, but it's referring 15 children. So when you're talking to your friends and family about Ascent Classical coming to the community and they're going and filling out an expression of interest or an application, we do ask, how did you hear about us? So please make sure to tell them to put your name, and we'll count that toward your founding family status. We're also able to offer founding family status based on volunteer hours to help us get the school launched and off the ground. I realize that's increasingly a challenge with us, many of us homebound right now. So I would encourage you to reach out to Ms. Gilmartin, whose contact information is on the slide as well. So what founding family status gets you is that is the highest priority in our lottery. So when the school is full and we do have lottery priorities, founding family is the highest one. So if you're not sure about coming the first year, or if you have young children who aren't yet ready for kindergarten, founding family is important because it will help ensure your children are able to get into the school. If you have a large family as well, again, our sibling preference typically only counts once you've had a child in the school for a year. So the sibling preference doesn't carry over just because you get one child in that school year, that lottery. But a founding family status will apply to all of your children. So it's a great opportunity to get all your children in, because after the first year, especially, the seats are pretty hard to come by. And we look to our friends at Liberty Common and look at their wait lists, and we can see that liberal arts classical education is in high demand and high value in the Fort Collins area. If what we've talked about is something you'd like to be a part of and you'd like to join our team as a teacher, an office staff, or student services or another capacity, you can visit our website, ascentclassical.org/careers, and we have a number of openings that we're hiring for right now as well. And from there, you can fill out an application, and Mr. Kramer will be getting back with you about that. So on that note, that concludes our formal presentation. What I'd like to do is I'm going to turn this back over to Ms. Gilmartin and allow her to moderate the questions that have come in since we began our presentation here.
Okay, thank you. We have quite a few questions, and I'll just pose the question and let you two decide who's going to answer. There's a parent who has already accepted a seat for their child, but they haven't sent in all the registration documents. Is the seat being held, and when do they need to have all of this information in by?
Yeah, so we do ask parents to send in at least basic information like birth certificates when they accept a seat. As far as shot records and other things, we will be accepting those later when we actually do registration, which we expect to be in the next couple weeks here. So it won't be too long. And again, the online process will allow you to upload shot records and things like that. I think it is important. One thing we didn't specifically talk about, but another thing that's unique about our program is that our school is authorized through the state of Colorado, not through the local school district. So we're not a Poudre School District school. We're actually a charter school through this Charter School Institute. So we're able to accept students from outside of the PSD boundaries. So if you live in Weld County or Thompson Valley or any of the other surrounding school districts, we're able to accept your families with the same priorities as the residents of Fort Collins as well.
Okay, next question. If I have...
Martin, I'm sorry, if I can just real quick, just kind of continue on with that. We will be accepting applications and offering seats up through late September. So as long as we have spots. So we do have seats remaining right now, and we'll be continuing to offer seats as they're open. So we do find, once the school year ends, we have a flood of new applications coming in. So we'll be around and be working with your family to get your child into the school fairly late into the fall. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. If I have more than one school-age child, so if I have one child that's enrolled for this next year, but then I have a younger child that's entering the following year, do they get sibling priority?
So yes, they do. If you have a child who's already been in the school for a year, then other children who come in later, maybe they're younger and come up to kindergarten age, they will receive a sibling priority. So I mentioned a couple of priorities we have, such as founding family status. We also have a sibling priority and a staff priority before the general lottery. So just as an example of how helpful the sibling priority is, I know from our second or third year at Golden View, our schools that Ms. Gilmartin and I were involved in, where our children attend, half of our incoming kindergarten class, typically every year, is coming in with a sibling preference. So that is a very useful thing to have. Even if you have one child in the school and the other child may not get in, that following year having that sibling priority is very helpful. And again, as we're adding grades and they're a K-12 school, I know it's inconvenient to have kids split among schools, but once they're both in the same or all in the same school, they can be with us throughout their K-12 career.
Okay, thank you. We've had a few questions on Latin. When do we begin teaching Latin and what is the curriculum that's used?
Great question. So I'll answer that. So as Derek said in the presentation, we do teach Latin and Greek roots all the way K through 6. And then there's a little bit more Latin that's taught in that 6th grade level, but we start an official class of Latin in 7th grade. And we have a Latin curriculum for the middle school that will be operating. And then they'll start WELOCs in 9th grade. And we will require all of our students to take Latin 7th through 9th grade. And then they can continue in that foreign language if they like, or at that point in time, they can switch to, again, depending on what we can offer at that point in time, switch to maybe another foreign language if we have the availability and the need and desire for that other class. But Latin will be taught 7th through 9th grade as a class, but we are going to teach those Latin and Greek roots as a part of our English courses in those earlier grades.
That leads to the next question, which we've been getting a lot of. When do we plan to add grades above 6th? That would probably be a good one for Mr. Shuler.
Yeah, so typically we've never actually opened up a school K-6. We've typically, we do K-8 at the smallest, and as we're looking, so in the second year, we'll of course add the 7th grade to bring our current 6th graders up. Based on the facility and where we end up, we've been looking at, can we get to K-8 even in our first year, if not K-9? So that's something that Mr. Kramer and I are working with the various facility folks that we're working with right now to determine how quickly we can get the school up with more grades that still allows us the time to take that foundational approach to prepare our students for high school.
Okay, thank you. This is a good question for Mr. Kramer. How do you challenge accelerated students so that they don't get bored?
That's a great question. I will say that our program is going to be accelerated. So unless your student is coming from a program like ours, typically there is an adjustment period if you're coming into a classical school. What I will say though is that's one of the things I love about classical education and the dialogue between the staff and the students is there's a phrase I've heard a lot in the classical world is that a well-worded and well-timed question is the great equalizer. And so our teachers are going to be trained in their ability to challenge those students and ask those questions to those students that need to be challenged while doing it in a way that doesn't make them feel singled out. They're asking the class, but also there's the ability for those teachers to use that same methodology of lifting up those students that need a little extra scaffolding is how they word those questions and how they do that. So we already start with a a pre-existing difficult curriculum. We also have the ability to test into an appropriate math section. And so as far as if mathematics is the area that there's needing challenge in, we're going to do our best to offer math courses K through 7 in that offering, if that makes sense, to make sure that we're challenging students if they need that. But in the other core classes, just that ability for the teacher to understand how to ask those questions and teach Socratically, even at those lower levels, is a way to help challenge those students that need to be challenged.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Governor Polis has prepared Coloradans for the possibility of remote learning in the fall. With Ascent being a low-tech curriculum, can you shed some light on what the fall might look like if this happens? Will technology be incorporated?
So if I can start, and Mr. Kramer, you might have a lot to add to this as well. So our school and our approach to education is we are a low-tech school. So our students do not have technology in the classroom. They don't have iPads, they don't have Chromebooks, they don't have their phones at school. Our teachers are very intentional about using technology to support instruction, but not necessarily replace instruction. So you won't see our teachers just showing videos all throughout school. They may show pieces of it or presentations with art or some maps of a battle. So we're very intentional about the use of technology while being a low-tech program. I think we've had a lot of experience this year with Golden View and our campus down in Douglas County, and even looking at other classical schools up in the Fort Collins area. Is how do we adjust our program given what's happened even this current school year? And I know we had notice on a Thursday evening that schools were not going to be allowed to continue the following week. And we took our program that, again, is very classroom centric. It's a lot of discussion based, and what has to be done online will never replace what we do in a classroom. But we had kids up and learning by Monday. So we've adjusted very quickly to technology and delivering our program to the best of our ability. I know this school year, both of our current schools are not just in maintenance mode where we're reviewing. We're actually having teachers recording lectures and posting lectures for our kids to continue learning. And I have 2 children who are remote learning right now. I have a 2nd grader who sits right in front of me in my office here at a desk and does her learning every day, along with a 3rd grader who I do have to separate them because they are children. So I have a 3rd grader who is doing the same thing. And they've adjusted really well to having a program that now relies heavily on technology, and so have our teachers and staff at Beyond to deliver it as well. So I think Mr. Kramer will share my sense that we hope we don't have to deal with it, but we're focused and committed to doing the best we can with the circumstances.
Yeah, I'll add to that in kind of both categories. So again, to his point, we have 2 other schools that are doing this very effectively. And I know a lot of parents out there that are a little frustrated that their students at their schools are simply just being told, hey, if you want to do this work, great. If you don't, that's okay. And a lot of students are kind of autopilot or not doing anything at all. And so that is a sad thing as an educator for me to see that that's happening. And so just know that we have two other schools that have been working on this and been troubleshooting and have done very, very well. Some using technology and some not. What I will say about the technology piece is a lot of classical schools get this bad rap of being Luddites and that we think that technology is the most evil thing in the world. And I'll tell you right now that that's not the case. I would just say that well, let me say this. It is a case in some classical schools. And so I know where that fear comes from is legitimate. What I would say about us is that we're very, very intentional with what technology we allow our teachers to use and what technology we'll allow our students to use. I'm a firm believer that technology is a tool. It's not necessarily the answer. And so what I would say with that is that anytime we bring up the means of using technology for something, I would ask what problem is this technology solving and what additional problems are going to come with that. And a lot of times inserting technology is going to actually have a larger negative outcome than if we simply stay with the hard copy or using books or just having the teacher leading the instruction. What we don't want is we don't want something else taking the role of the teacher in the classroom. If the teacher decides to use the technology, it's to enhance what they're teaching, but they are still the primary mover of instruction in the classroom. And the students are not passive learners, but active learners and not using technology as a crutch. And not to mention, especially the cell phone piece, so many times cell phones become such a distraction distraction. Even if they do bring a small little enhancement to the class, which there are ways that you can do that, the negative consequence of the distraction of the cell phone is just absolutely insurmountable. And so we can't really just bring in technology because that's what everyone else is doing. And that's what makes us a little bit unique as a school. We're not going to base what we do based on trends, but we're going to base what we think is best on time-tested and sure things that we believe are what's best for your kids, not just what everyone else is doing.
Thank you. And I'll add to that I have 3 children at Golden View, a 6th grader, 8th grader, and 10th grader, and they have all adjusted very well to the distance learning. I've been so impressed with the way the teachers have done this. It's very organized, laid out for the kids. They're self-directed, and they miss their friends. They want to go back, but I'm just impressed with what all of the teachers have done. They do video lectures. They keep the kids engaged. They do back and forth questions. So it's really worked out well. I mean, we want it to go back to normal, but it has worked out very well. So I'm going to go on to the next question, which is how many classes will be offered per grade?
Yeah, I can answer. So as of right now, that really is dependent on enrollment. As far as the maximum amount we would have is 2 sections per class. But again, enrollment's really going to drive that. So if we have enough to split into those 2 classes for kindergarten and 1st grade and 2nd grade, that's what we'll do. And I anticipate that we will. And so that's what we'd really like to have. But it really depends on the enrollment that we have in those sections. And I don't know if Derek wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on another question here. So, in the event we do end up doing 2 sections per grade K6, that's about 300 students. I expect will probably be less than that just because of what's going on right now and it being more difficult to get out and talk to families about education opportunities at Ascent. But that is kind of our target spot is 300 at the max on opening.
Okay, thanks. This is one of my favorite questions. Do the children get to keep the books they read throughout their time at Ascent?
Yeah, can I take that?
Yes.
So yes, we especially the novels that they're reading, the hope is that these students learn to love these beautiful things that we put in front of them. And so we want them to cherish them. We want them to keep them. And so they're going to be writing in them. They're going to be annotating in them. And so we're hoping that we hold these things up as beautiful things to them. And the saddest thing as a teacher is to see kids throw out their stuff at the end of the year. But those books should be precious to them. They should be something that they cherish. And so, no, that is a very important thing as far as making sure that they love those things enough that they do want to keep them. And so, yes, they will keep those.
Yes, I have a wonderful library here from all of my kids. All right, this is one that I get quite a bit. If we accept a seat, how soon will our current school be informed that we're leaving?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll hop on that. So as a state authorized school, we don't, so we aren't using the same system as other schools. So we will be asking parents to send over records of their child's transcripts and education if it's applicable, and, as needed. So again, since we're not a PSD or a PUDR school district school, we won't be getting records necessarily from the school district, but we will be asking parents to send things over. So we'd like them to make the commitment, be excited enough about what we're doing because we are opening next year. I know we've also had some questions about that given what's been going on. What's our status? Again, we've been fortunate enough to have received a close to $1 million federal grant to get started. We have Mr. Kramer on board. We have our facility secured. And Mr. Kramer's been working hard on hiring great teachers right now. So we're looking forward to opening in the fall. And again, there's another question about if you do accept a seat, how late can you back out? Well, again, we are a school of choice. We work every day to earn the opportunity to work with you and your family. So you can decide to leave our school anytime throughout the school year. Again, we want to work with you and partner with your family to provide a great education to your kids and to support your family. So again, if you do accept a spot, you are able to back out, but we'd love to have you when our school opens.
All right. What kind of sports and activities or extracurricular will be offered, Mr. Kramer?
Good. So a lot of that is, it kind of depends on where we are in the growth of our school. Initially, when we're K through 6 and in the space that we'll be in, the extracurriculars will be tied more so to what they're doing as a part of the curriculum. So we do have PE every day. They split between music and art in those periods of the day. And so we're kind of exposing them to some of those extracurriculars at a young age. And we think they're very important. And I can speak to that a little bit later. But as we grow as a school and we get into the 7th and 8th grade, which we're hoping to grow into the second year, we will start having some of those middle school sports. Again, those sports will be driven by what our families are really looking for and what our facilities and we can financially afford. So I'm one of those that thinks that athletics is a very important piece of the school experience. If done well. I will say this, I think a lot of schools don't do the athletics very well. And I'm not looking at just wins and losses, but what I'm saying is that the purpose of those arenas should be tied to the mission of the school. And so one of the things that I want to be very careful of is when we start doing these sports, it's that we're giving these students an opportunity not only to enjoy themselves, but we're building them up in their physical bodies. And teaching them what a healthy lifestyle is, but we're also giving them an avenue to practice some of these virtues that we're teaching them in the classroom that you can't practice in the classroom. And so I know this is a little bit of more of an abstract answer to the question, but I would fully hope that we would have a fairly robust athletics program as well as the arts moving forward. But a lot of that is going to be driven by the families and what they desire and what the students desire, but also what we have as facilities wise. So my hope is that if we grow out like we're hoping, we would have quite a few sports and we'd have programs that not only enhance the experience, but enhance what we're trying to do as far as training up good human beings and virtuous citizens. And I think athletics can give a very unique arena for us to practice those things in with our students. So again, I hope that answers your question, even though I didn't get too much into specifics, because at this point in time, I don't know. I can give you some of the sports that we have at some of our other campuses, but again, I'm hoping that we grow to the point where we have a lot of things to offer for those students.
Okay, thank you. This is a question that's come in, and we've had this question a few times, sort of focused around the idea of STEM, which is that from a mom, my son will be entering 3rd grade in the fall. There seems to be a great focus on literature and art, which is great, but our son loves science and engineering. Do you think this school would be a good fit for him?
Can I take that?
Yes, please.
Sure. And so Derek said this in the presentation earlier, but the liberal arts always gets, I think the thing that's on the forefront of liberal arts is art, music, history, and English, and that's it. And I think a lot of schools that say that they're liberal arts schools aren't either don't, and there might be some truth to this where they don't focus on those things as much as they should, but a true liberal arts school should expose those hard sciences. And so science and mathematics are as much important to a liberal arts school as the arts or the traditional, what maybe people would say of arts, but the humanities classes is maybe a better way to say that. And so 100%, the sciences and mathematics classes are going to be taught, and they're important. I think we might teach them a little bit differently than they would be taught in a traditional sense or in your district school, because the focus is not on, like Derek said in his thing, it's not on this utility of so they can get into college and get a job. That would be a happy byproduct of them learning these things, but there is beauty and wonder in these things that these students can be exposed to that I think a lot of times schools that are STEM focus on it too much for its utility. I could be wrong, and I could be exposed to just a very specific type of STEM school, but STEM schools that I've interacted with have been very utility driven. We're really trying to focus on driving and helping the students not only understand themselves, but also understand the world around them better. And I think that the sciences must be taught in a way that not only is on equal footing with the humanities, but if we're trying to train the whole student, those things are very, very important. And so, I know STEM programs will have probably more varied things to focus on those areas. And you'll have to make that decision as a family is what you think is best. But know that we do offer those sciences and those mathematics classes, and we hold them with very, very high regard.
Thank you. I think this is a question for Mr. Kramer around special education. My daughter is dyslexic. Do you have programs in place for kids with learning struggles such as this?
Great question. Yes, we as a charter school will provide student services. I have a student services director that is very passionate about helping students grow and learn that have disabilities. And so, yes, we accept any and all students, and our student services program will be built out depending on the needs of those students that we have. But yeah, I would, just to calm your fears, we're going to have student services, and we also will have teachers that care immensely for your child, that even without student services, which we'll have, but outside of student services, that's probably a better way for me to say it, outside of student services, we're going to have a staff that cares so much about your kid that they're going to have some of those accommodations when they're in class, just to make sure that your student is still walking through that and accessing that curriculum just as anyone should. And so we'll have the support for that student, but we're outside with the student services, but we're also going to have teachers that care immensely for your child and that want to help your child in the classroom regardless of the services that we're providing. And so yeah, we will definitely have those services, and I have a really, really great individual coming in to lead our student services department.
Yeah, and if I can go back on that as well real quick, I think another thing that's important to recognize about the DNA of our style of classical education is our model of classical education was really built around a program to support special needs. That was really a commitment of one of the first people who got involved in starting the lineage of classical education from which we descend. What we talk about an explicit phonics program being the primary language acquisition program we use. That is actually a program that a lot of schools use to support kids with dyslexia and have special needs. So we actually call it best first instruction. So what a lot of schools use as extra help, we actually use as primary instruction for all children, just with the idea that why should we reserve what is special for the kids when it can work for all children. And especially dyslexia, we talk about not just knowing the sounds, but our kids learn how to write the letters when they're learning the sounds. So we teach them how to write the letters early as well. And that's actually helps significantly with dyslexia. Also, our focus on cursive handwriting helps because it also orders the letters and helps children as well. So I think, again, just we try to keep and address a lot of those issues in the classroom, but we have a robust student services program to provide that additional support as well.
And I'll just add one thing. As I've been involved now in starting 3 schools, we have a lot of parents in our other 2 schools who have come from all different backgrounds, all different kinds of schools, homeschooling, public school, charter schools. And we have a lot of parents that have given testimonials for their own child, their children that have had learning disabilities, and how well this curriculum and school has helped address those. And so if any parent would like to talk to another parent who may have gone through this, I can get you in touch with them, because I've had many parents reach out and say, Kim, if you'd ever like me to talk to some other parents, I'd love to do it. So please just email, because we'd be happy to get those parents in touch. It really does help to talk to other parents and have those testimonials.
Yeah, Ms. Gilmartin, and I think the reason we have a lot of those testimonials, because you and I have talked to a lot of those parents, is, again, our approach with student services is to not keep a child on an individualized education plan or a special ed plan for their entire academic career. Our focus is to look at the needs of your child and to address their needs and help them be independent learners. So it's to get them off of IEPs and into classrooms. We're still there to provide support, but it doesn't need to be with an IEP. And I think that is different, because when we look at metrics of how schools are assessed, there is actually an incentive in public schools to keep children on IEPs, to not meet their needs, because their schools are evaluated on how many kids do you have with IEPs. And the idea is that the more you have, the better you're doing. We believe that really the metric should be is how many kids you're getting off IEPs. So it's not just the number that are on it, but how many are you getting off to help them to become independent learners. And I think that's why we have a lot of those testimonials that you're talking about.
Right, I agree 100%. Here's a question that I'll take the answer because it's one that has to do with busing. As we've mentioned, we are going to be providing bus service from the Windsor area. And the reason it's from the Windsor area is because when we first were doing outreach in the community, we were planning for Windsor location, a little west of Windsor. So we have many families who have enrolled there. And when we found our temporary location, it's a bit of a drive. So some parents are asking when we will decide where that meeting area, that pickup area is going to be in Windsor. And one of the things I'd like you to do is to email me and express your interest in the bus. We have a form that we're asking everybody to fill out if they are interested in the bus. And that way I have addresses for where everybody is located. We will be picking somewhat of a central location, but if we do it as we have done in our Douglas County School, we bus families up from Castle Rock to the Lone Tree location. And we entered into a deal with a preschool that also, it's an after school care and before school care facility who actually has a lot of the kids that go in there after school, and that sort of worked out well, that we had one location, one drop off and pick up location there. So we'll be looking at doing something similar in an area in Windsor. And like I said, just please reach out to me if you have ideas on that, or if you would like to put your name down for the bus service. All right, I'm gonna go to the next question here. Yeah, for some reason, my questions are not coming up. You guys, sorry. Okay, here we go. It's coming up now. Okay, here's one. Once the school is established, will the school consider incorporating the spelling bee program? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I can take that. And I think we, and I responded directly to the gentleman who asked that question. But again, I think Mr. Kramer said that a lot of our approach to what we offer, athletics and events and clubs, are going to depend on a number of things. First of all, it's we have to have sufficient interest in running it. Whatever activities we have to be aligned to the curriculum as well and to our school culture. But again, it's based on student demand. And I think something like the spelling bee is something that goes along really well with the classical program. So again, as we grow and have a number of students and have the demand, that is the type of thing that we would anticipate offering.
Okay. And then here's I know that some of these questions have been answered, but I think if it's good for the audience to hear, I'm going to ask it. I see the elementary grades start at 7:40 and kindergarten starts at 8. I think there's some confusion there. What time will the school start? And if you have multiple children in multiple grades, will it start at the same time?
Good. Yeah, we haven't finalized all of that. We're still dealing with some things at the church. My heart would be that if you have multiple kids that you're dropping off at once, you'd be dropping them all off at once. I don't want to have to make you come back. And so we should be finalizing some of those schedules and be getting back to you guys on that for those families that are interested. But yeah, we wouldn't want you to have to go through Carline twice. That would not be fun. I think Carline once is enough. And so we'll get those schedules out once we finalize them.
Okay, thank you. Another question about budget cuts. There may be, I'm hearing there may be budget cuts for public schools next year. How will this decrease of funding affect a new charter school like ours?
Great question. It's something that we're following closely. Mr. Kramer and I have been on a number of calls in the past week. I do expect we're going to see budget cuts next year. We don't know yet because the legislature has been recessed for the past month and a half. So they have one thing they're required to do by law during their session, and that's pass a budget. So I think they just started back in session on a limited capacity today. and we've been told that we should have some budget guidance in the next 3 weeks. Again, I think we're currently doing our budget models with cuts anticipated. That's just where we are. I think we are, because we do have a federal startup grant that I mentioned earlier, we do have a pretty substantial boost so that we can be ordering things like furniture and books and curriculum. So that's going to definitely help us this first year. But again, we do have our budget models currently built around cuts in the budget right now.
Great. Okay, another question. What are the security measures for our building next year?
Yeah, I think, again, we take a comprehensive, well-rounded approach to security. Within the church itself is that we are able to have secure access to all the school space. So we've been working with the church on that, just making sure that, again, all the school space is secured. The church staff has also agreed to undergo background checks, just like our teachers undergo as well. So we do have that. Again, we do take a comprehensive approach to security. And from my experience, one of the best ways for us to be able to keep our schools safe, because statistically speaking, most school threats are insider threats. And I think having a smaller school is what is probably the most effective thing that we can do to know what's going on and help secure our school. It's teachers knowing kids, it's administrators knowing kids, and just having good adult relationships is one of the key things that allows us to have a good sense of what's going on in our school. And again, we do have other security measures that we typically don't talk about in public, but we are committed to doing everything we can to provide for the security of our children and help ensure they come home every day.
Yeah, and just the only thing I'll add to that, Derek, thank you, is just to say that one of the things that we do, and without getting in specifics, is we'll have to build, and we do build great relationships with first responders in that area. We want them to know us by a first name basis. We want them to be able to come through and make sure that everything in our plan is in alignment with what they'd like to see. And so, we do take security very seriously. And so, your kids coming to us, I understand for a parent, leaving your student with people is a scary thing, and so just know that we do take that seriously, and we want to make sure that not only are they safe, but they're coming to a place they feel comfortable, because you can't learn very well if you don't feel comfortable, and so we want to make sure that they do that, and we take that very seriously.
Thank you. I'd like to, there have been a few questions about getting founding family status and asking the question about how we can help get the word out about the school. Do you mind if I take that one?
Please.
So right now we're having to do all of these webinars. We're having to do these information meetings via webinar. We have scheduled one for every week for the next 4 weeks. I'm going to be putting those up on the website so that you can share them with your friends and neighbors and family. We'd love to have people join us. As soon as we are able to do in-person meetings at the church, we will be doing that. In the meantime, the best way for you to spread the word is to just share our Facebook page with your friends, share our newsletters with your friends, and we find that next door posts are very, very effective because you're putting it in your neighborhood, into a digital neighborhood. And so it's a little bit more targeted. We're happy to help you with any kind of wording that you'd like. And one of the things that we're also offering is a more informal, casual meeting. Instead of a webinar like this, we're offering coffee chats. And we might do coffee chats with Mr. Kramer. We might do coffee chats with me. And this is an opportunity for you to get 5 to 10 of your friends and reach out to us. And we're setting up Zoom meetings so we can get on the camera and just answer the questions that you have and go over our curriculum. It's a lot more personal, and we're ready and willing to do that as soon as you get people that are interested. So if you would like to do something like that, I'm asking that you reach out to me. We also have many flyers that if people are comfortable, they can do flyer drops. These are specific to the Northern Colorado school, and they have the information on there. The last thing I'll say is that there have been a few parents that have reached out to say, if we were to do social distancing and follow some strict protocols, would we be able to look inside the church, take a look at the classrooms? Yes, we can do that. Again, it's going to be a one-on-one thing. And so just reach out to me if you're interested in doing that. And I do plan to spend some time this summer going up there and giving some tours to individuals. Are there any other questions, Mr. Kramer or Mr. Shuler, that we haven't answered that you'd like to answer? Anything else you'd like to add?
The only thing I think quick that I can answer is kindergarten being full-time or part-time. It will be part-time, half-day kindergarten, and we're hoping to have some sections, in an AM section and an afternoon section.
Yes, thank you for that. And the other thing that we will be doing in the summer is we will be working on putting together gatherings so that you can meet, families can meet other families, might do it by grade. In our other two schools, we've done that. We have quite a few. As long as the restrictions are lifted and we're able to do that, we'd love to put together some get-togethers. We like parents to sort of lead that. But we would like to do it at the church if we could. They have a huge outdoor area, and that would be perfect for that. So we'll keep you informed. I would like to ask that if you're not getting our newsletters, please go onto the website and fill out the subscribe. Or if you're still not getting them and you've done that, reach out to me. I can double check that you're on there. We do send out updates on a regular basis through our newsletters. If you are on Facebook, please follow Facebook. We post quite a bit on there. And if you're not on Facebook, then just make sure to stay in touch with us with the newsletters, and always reach out to us if you have any questions. I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to give you tours. We do so many tours at our current schools. That's what we usually do, and I planned on doing that all throughout May. If I could figure out a way to do it virtually, we would, but I can tell you that when you walk into one of our schools and you walk into this classroom with these children who are engaged and listening to the teacher and sitting in their desks and in a structured environment with beautiful art on the walls, and watching them listen and interact together is just a beautiful thing. And I'm sorry that we won't be able to show you that. I may try to do a virtual tour through our Golden View school, even though it'll be empty, and put that online so that you can see what the classrooms look like and you can see what's on the walls. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, Ms. Gilmartin, if I can offer, you talk about social media and not having to be creative, but getting the word out, just when everybody's still under I guess where it's safer at home in communities these days. But not just connecting with our Facebook group and sharing its content, which is important, but there are a number of community groups on Facebook. If you're a member of those, not just next door, but even community Facebook groups, please share our content or upcoming information meetings like this. I think we're going to try to do some Facebook Live meetings here in the next few weeks as well, just to see how that works. But I know there are a number of like a Northern Colorado Moms group. Kind of awkward if I post there, but but if that's something you're a member of groups like that, please share our content and just announcements about the school. That'd be a big help.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and put this last screen up one more time so that everybody can see it. Oops, hang on a second. So this is our contact screen. You can see our website, nocode.ascentclassical.org. Our email addresses, there's Mr. Kramer's email address, my email address, and please jot those down, take a screenshot. If you have any questions, reach out to us. I will be posting our next webinar here in the near future, which is going to be next week. We're sort of doing different days and some different times to give people lots of options. And as we said, please do share our school with as many people as you can. That just helps the school. And, you know, I'll say from my own experience, when my kids left the district school and went to Golden View almost 6 years ago, one of the things that they wanted was some of their friends to come with them. So we got a lot of their friends to come, and they all started school at the same time, all brand new students, but people that they knew. And so that's always a great idea too, if you have a lot of like-minded friends and families who value this type of education. This is a great way to get them interested in it, is to get the kids to go and start at the same time. Mr. Kramer, would you like to add anything about that in terms of deciding to start school this next year, instead of waiting?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is the fact that you're concerned and you're considering what's best for your child, I applaud you. That's a good thing. And so the only thing I'd make sure you do is ask questions of the school. You know, doing these things is helpful, but ask questions of the school. How are you going to handle this? What are your plans for this? And we're happy to answer those questions for you. And that's going to be true for any school. And you know, starting a brand new school, first people in the door, there's something really unique about that and special about that. I feel very honored to be the first principal of the school. I know a lot of my staff that I'm bringing in feels very honored and holds this very, very highly as being the first staff to be a staff of the school. And so there's something really special about being the first class in the door for these students. And again, we're hoping that things go well and everything, you know, we're able to go back to school the way that we want to go back to school in the fall. But just make sure you're asking questions and know what it is that you're getting from wherever you send your child. If that's not us, just make sure you ask questions of that place as well, to make sure that, you know, this is an important decision for your child and it needs to be the best fit for your kid and your family. We just think that we have a really good program with some really good people. And so we have a lot to say about why we love being a part of Ascent. But hopefully we'd love to have you on board, but just make sure wherever you send your child, you ask those questions and get the answers that you need to make an educated decision.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Mr. Kramer. All right, well, we are out of time, so we're going to sign off here. Thank you so much for joining us. And like I said, if you've got other questions, please email us. Otherwise, we will hopefully see you at an event soon. Take care. Thank you, Mr. Kramer and Mr. Shuler.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time, and have a great evening.
Good to see you guys.
Bye-bye.